In the 5th year of being with Blake, I proposed to break up. Blake gave a faint smile. Luna, that's just a stray cat picked up from the street. It's dirty and smelly. It doesn't know how to please people. So it deserves to be thrown out in the rain. Why are you acting like it? Not being good? There was a hint of mockery in his expression. Let's break up. I'm bored with you anyway. I didn't say anything. A few months later. It was pouring with rain. Blake drove over and waited for me downstairs all night. Luna, come home with me. His eyes were bloodshot. And his voice was hoarse as he stepped forward and tried to grab my hand. But someone stopped him. Sorry. She can't go home with you. The man chuckled. Then put his arm around my waist and raised his eyebrows slightly. Because she has to take responsibility for me. I worked overtime on Friday. And it was already 1 o'clock in the morning when I got home. I pushed open the door. All the lights in the house were on. I lowered my head and looked at my feet. That little guy. Lucky, hadn't fulfilled why I'm sorry. Didn't show up. Since I picked it up half a month ago. No matter how late I worked overtime. This little cat with a lame leg would always wait in the entrance hall. But it was suddenly absent today. Just as I was feeling a bit puzzled. A coquettish and soft voice came from the living room. Blake, be gentle, it hurts so much. I frowned involuntarily. I put the keys in the entrance hall and walked inside. There on the sofa. Cynthia was wearing a silk camisole nightgown, revealing her beautiful collarbone. She was pouting and begging the man in front of her. There was a shallow scratch on her arm. Blake was applying medicine to her. Hearing Cynthia's coquettish cry of pain, he frowned slightly and said, so delicate. However, although he said that, he still liked and his movements. Under the warm, colored lights, Blake's expression was careful and focused, as if he was repairing a delicate porcelain item. Cynthia lowered her head, and a lock of curly hair fell, gently brushing against Blake's profile. An ambiguous undercurrent slowly surged in the air. It seemed that both of them were immersed in this moment and didn't hear the sound of the door opening. They also didn't know that there was one more person. Me, in the living room. I didn't say anything either. There was a major operational accident in the game project I was in charge of. I dealt with bugs all day and also handled player complaints. I was really exhausted. Just as I was about to leave and give the living room to the two of them, Cynthia suddenly raised her eyes. Sister-in-law. You're back. Please don't misunderstand. Blake is just applying medicine to me. She was like a frightened little rabbit, hastily explaining to me. And she even made a gesture to pull back her arm. But Blake pressed it down with one hand. What are you moving for? The medicine hasn't been applied properly yet. Aren't you afraid of leaving a scar? Hearing this, Cynthia looked at me. And a look of embarrassment appeared on her face. This. Sister-in-law. I looked at her calmly. A trace of complacency quickly flashed in her eyes. But she still looked innocent on the surface. Over the years, I had almost gotten used to it. Cynthia was Blake's childhood friend. The two of them had been neighbors since childhood and grew up together. And their relationship was very close. Even in their houses. They each reserved a special bedroom for the other. When I first got together with Blake, I once knitted a scarf for him. But during a certain dinner party, Cynthia accidentally knocked over the Coke. She casually picked up the scarf to wipe it. The red woolen scarf was covered with brown liquid and the grease from the table. After that, she just blinked her eyes and said guiltily, sorry. Sister-in-law. I didn't know this was knitted by you. I just thought the scarf was the cheapest thing on Blake. So I used it casually. You won't blame me. Will you? Blake came from a wealthy family. And everything he ate, wore, and used was of the best quality. The scarf I knitted was indeed a bit shabby for him. At that time, I was already sensitive and inferior. After hearing Cynthia's words, I felt even more embarrassed. So I remained silent. The atmosphere was a bit tense for a moment. At this time, Blake glanced at me infuriately and said, Luna, it's just a scarf. Why make a big deal out of it? Yes, hadn't so sell I'd say. Why make a big deal out of it? So at this moment, I quietly looked at the two people in the living room and asked calmly in reply, it's just applying medicine. How could there be any misunderstanding? Cynthia's flustered and timid expression froze on her face like that. And upon hearing this, Blake's hand holding the iodine tincture paused slightly. I ignored them. Instead, I searched for Lucky's figure in the house. The cat's nest, the bedroom, the study, the bathroom. It wasn't anywhere. Lucky was naturally timid and usually only clung to me. It wasn't even close to Blake. How could it just disappear out of thin air? I suddenly had a bad premonition in my heart, so I looked at the two people on the sofa. Where's Lucky? Do you mean that dirty and ugly stray cat? Sister-in-law. Cynthia playfully stuck out her tongue, pointed at the light-colored scratch on her arm, and said, "It scratched me." And Blake was so angry that he threw it away. In the early morning, there was a light rain. It fell on my body, and it was bone-chillingly cold. I didn't even hold an umbrella and rushed straight to the garbage station in the community. There was Lucky, curled up in a small ball, lying there motionless. Lucky, I'm sorry. I stepped forward and picked it up, and my eyes couldn't help but turn red. Lucky raised its little head. When it saw it was me, its eyes lit up instantly. Meow. Meow meow. Meow meow meow. It was clearly me who didn't take good care of it. But it still came to the place where I first met it and waited for me silently. The cold raindrops slapped against my face. At this moment, I suddenly made a certain decision. When I got back to the place where I lived, Cynthia was no longer in the living room. She probably went back to her exclusive room. But Blake was standing in the entrance hall with a cold face. When he saw me soaked all over, his eyebrows immediately furrowed. "Luna, you're such an adult. Don't you even know to bring an umbrella when you go out?" He raised his hand and took out a clean towel from the storage cabinet. "Come here. I'll dry your hair for you." But I didn't move. Blake let out a low sigh. "Let's break up." Over the years, I was really tired. The love I once had was gradually worn away bit by bit. Now, it was almost unrecognizable. Upon hearing this, Blake was stunned. When he came to his senses, he threw the towel in his hand hard onto the counter and looked at me infuriately. "Luna, it's just a stray cat. Is it really worth it?" Lucky was born timid and would hide when it saw strangers. I had just cut its nails the day before yesterday, so that scratch on Cynthia's arm could never have been caused by Lucky. Blake had always been rigorous and careful and couldn't have failed to think of that, but he still directly threw Lucky away. Just because that person was Cynthia. I could bury my head in the sand and not care about all the previous things. But Lucky, heading so seldom my obsession. It was my little cat. I didn't want it to suffer the same hardships that I had endured, so I said calmly, "It is worth it." Blake stared at me fixedly, and his handsome face was covered with a layer of frost. He didn't expect that the person who had been wholeheartedly in love with him since college would one day take the initiative to propose a breakup. Pride was something engraved in Blake's bones. So he slightly raised his eyelids. And there was a hint of mockery in his expression. "Then let's break up. I'm bored with you anyway." When I left Blake's house, I only took Lucky and a suitcase with me. It turned out that these 5 years of time, and the love that ran through my entire girlhood, could all be compressed into such a small suitcase. When I arrived at the hotel, Lucky had already fallen into a deep sleep. I lay on the bed but couldn't fall asleep no matter what. So I simply got up, swiped my card, and went to the 15th floor Time Bar. My dining partner and friend, Sunny, had recommended this bar to me several times. "Luna, this bar not only makes great cocktails, but even the male models here are the best. When can I take you to have a look?" I declined her invitation at that time, because Blake didn't like it when I drank. But now, I really needed a drink. The lights were blurred, and the music was a soft tune. "Miss, what would you like to drink?" I was sitting at the bar, and the smiling bartender handed me a drinks menu. After opening it, there were not only the names, pictures, ingredients, and tastes of the drinks on it. There was also a sentence corresponding to each drink name. Pawnshop No. 8 is the thing you redeemed by giving everything really what you want. Tomorrow it will eventually come, but it's still worth looking forward to, isn't it? Bald if you think too much. You'll lose more hair. I flipped through page after page of novel or humorous drink names. Finally, hadn't fulfilled sigh. I stopped at daydream. I handed the drinks menu back to the bartender and smiled. Please make me a glass of this. Thank you. The bartender was a short-haired young lady with a silver stud earring by her ear. Looking fresh and handsome. Hearing this, she kindly reminded me, Miss, this drink has a high alcohol content. I winked at her. Don't worry. I can hold my liquor well. I wasn't boasting. At the celebration banquet for the previous project, a large number of my colleagues were drunk. I was the one who drank the most. But I was the most sober. After the banquet, I was still sober enough to ask the waiter to stuff the drunk colleagues into their respective hotel rooms one by one. Seeing my confident appearance, the bartender gave me a thumbs up. Soon, let out a low sigh. A glass of daydream was mixed. The ice blue liquid tasted slightly sweet when it entered my mouth. And there was also the fresher aroma of lemon. It was really delicious. So I couldn't resist and had another glass. Such a delicious drink. I didn't know when I would be able to have it again next time. Thinking like this, I ordered a third glass. You really are something. Drinking wine like water. A deep and pleasant male voice sounded. I opened my misty eyes and looked over. Under the gorgeous and changing lights of the bar, the man had a slender figure. Deep and handsome facial features. When he slightly raised his eyebrows, there was an indescribable charm about him. Looking at the man's face in front of me, I finally understood that what Sunny said was true. The male models in this bar really were very good looking. But why did he look a bit familiar? You. How much do you charge for one night? I put down the wine glass in my hand and tilted my head to ask him. The man was slightly taken aback. After a moment, he curved his lips and asked me in return, What? Do you want to sleep with me? Maybe it was the courage given by the alcohol. Maybe it was the emotions that had been suppressed for a long time and urgently needed an outlet. So I stretched out my hand and traced the man's eyebrows and eyes gently, asking in a soft voice, Is that not possible? It's possible. The man's throat moved slightly, and his deep voice covered up a certain emotion, as long as you don't regret it. At the entrance of the hotel, clothes were scattered all over the floor. I was pressed against the wall, and my legs were a bit unsteady. Be good. Hold on tight. The man cooed in a low voice as he lifted the bend of my leg. Then he leaned down and kissed me fiercely. The scent of fur wood enveloped me, saturating me both inside and out. My cheeks were flushed, and my voice was broken. I don't know how much time had passed. I completely lost consciousness. When I woke up the next day, the pillow beside me was empty. I lay on the bed, feeling weak all over. Sure enough. Listen to others and you'll have a full meal. I was just too confident in my alcohol tolerance. I should have listened to the bartender earlier. Is it a bit too late to understand this truth now? Suddenly, a male voice sounded in the silent room. I was so startled that I jolted. I sat up abruptly from the bed. I saw a man sitting on the sofa 3 meters away. He had broad shoulders and long legs, with a reserved demeanor. The sunlight filtered through the gaps in the curtains and landed on his face, like the light shed by a god. And my kitten, Lucky, was lying obediently in his arms, stretching out its paw to fiddle with his tie. Holding the cat, the man raised his eyes and looked at me, with a hint of an ambiguous smile in his eyes. You're awake? Do you need me to help you recall what happened last night? And when I saw his face clearly, I was completely stunned. After a moment, I opened my mouth with a trembling voice, President Leo. What a coincidence. You're here too? 3 months ago, a big boss suddenly joined our company out of the blue. Everyone was on tenterhooks, fearing that the first move of this new official would target them, especially the company's senior management, who were on high alert. However, this big boss only held a large meeting on the first day to briefly introduce himself. After that, there were no further actions. He clocked in and out of work on time every day, and he even seemed a bit cynical, occasionally joking with everyone. So gradually, everyone relaxed, especially the big boss himself, who was not only handsome in appearance but also had an extraordinary bearing. He also had a really good personality and didn't seem to have the airs of a boss at all. In Sunny's words, the boss looks like this. I wouldn't mind paying to work here. Luna, have you noticed? Ever since President Leo came to the company, the cleaning auntie seems to have become several years younger. And at this moment, this big boss who could make the cleaning auntie look younger was standing in my room, holding my cat, and slightly raising his eyebrows as he said, "It's not really a coincidence. Luna. After all, last night, you earnestly said that you wanted to sleep with me and even threw money at me." When I heard this, I felt as if the sky was about to fall. Why was it him? How could it be him? What kind of wine was that daydream I had yesterday? It could make me so drunk and muddled. I actually mistook the big boss for a male model and slept with him. My career in the workplace really has no bright future. Silently pulling the quilt up to the highest, I forced a smile. President Leo. Can we just pretend that nothing happened? The air suddenly turned cold for a moment. The big boss said calmly, "Sure." When I heard this, I immediately let out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. At this time, the big boss continued, "Then you can settle the bill for last night." Huh? I opened my mouth wide and looked at the person in front of me in surprise. What? Do you want to renege on the debt? No. I couldn't help but complain in my heart. Capitalists are indeed capitalists. Well, considering his good skills, I'll pay this money. President Leo. How much do you think is appropriate for me to give you? 100,000 yuan. What? I looked up in disbelief. I watched as the big boss used the calmest tone to say words that made people want to die. What? Does Lois think I'm not worth it? Help. At a time like this. Can you not call me by my work name? I replied a bit awkwardly. Of course not. What's your bank card number? I'll transfer the money to you. All my savings, added together, amounted to 516,432.7 yuan. This was the money I had prepared for buying a house. After studying in Shanghai for 4 years, and working for 3 years, buying a house had always been my obsession. When I broke up with Blake and moved out of his house, what made me sadder than the breakup was that I had nowhere to go. Now the money for buying a house wasn't enough. I slept with the big boss and even had to pay an additional 100 yuan. Transfer it via WeChat. Leo held Lucky in one hand and showed me the QR code with the other, saying, "Scan it." After I scanned it, I hesitated and said, "There's a limit on WeChat. The maximum amount per transfer is 50 yuan. And the daily limit is 20 yuan. After the phone screen showed that the friend request was accepted. Then it will be deducted from your bonus. Leo placed Lucky on the sofa, stroked its little head, and then said to me, "Meet me at the restaurant in an hour. By the way, let's talk about the anniversary version of your project. For this anniversary celebration, we will launch a new character. The fifth male led a painting of mortal life, and the gacha pool will also be adjusted. The current version is 90 complete, and in half a month, there will be an internal test for the finalized version." 40 minutes later, I was sitting at the dining table, giving a work report. Before I came, I originally felt a bit strange. After all, such an embarrassing thing had just happened. But seeing the person in front of me already in work mode, that bit of awkwardness vanished immediately. "It sounds like you're quite confident about this version." Leo saw that I hadn't touched my chopsticks much and placed a bowl of pumpkin and millet porridge in front of me, saying, "Have some porridge first, or your stomach will feel uncomfortable." "Thank you, President Leo." After taking a sip of the porridge, my stomach immediately felt warm. I put down the spoon and continued, "I do have a certain level of confidence. Both the activities and the plot of the anniversary version have been innovated, and the players have high expectations for the new character. When facing the big boss, I must never say that I'm not confident about my work, but I also can't be too absolute. The statement at having a certain level of confidence is relatively appropriate." However, Leo didn't play by the rules and bluntly said, "But Luna, the version of painting of mortal life last week was very small in scale. It only updated to race Kend activities. But there was a major operation accident. So, Where does your so-called certain level of confidence for the anniversary version in 3 months come from? Upon hearing this, I hesitated for a moment. Painting of Mortal Life is a female-oriented game. But in the activity plot last week, there was a misogynistic meme from an H-manga. As a result, players expressed one after another that they would quit the game. And the daily revenue was directly halved. I pursed my lips and said, President Leo, I promise that there will definitely be no such low-level mistakes in the anniversary version. Upon hearing this, Leo shook his head and said, Luna, how can you guarantee it? Didn't you already discover and raise the problem with last week's version? But what happened later? I fell silent. Yes, I had raised it. But it was rejected. The producer of the Painting of Mortal Life project is Haley. I'm the assistant producer. After the game was launched, its revenue was far ahead of other games of the same type and it became the company's ace project. Originally, Heavy fulfilled way. With this, Haley would have been promoted to the head of the studio smoothly. And I would have become the producer of this game. But Haley became pregnant and took maternity leave at the crucial moment of her promotion. And due to massive bleeding during childbirth and poor postpartum recovery, she couldn't come back to work for a long time. So, the position of the head of the studio fell to Victor, the producer of the neighboring project. Victor is in his 30s and has a strong sense of superiority. He used to work at a certain company for a few years. His catchphrase is each of you should learn to be grateful and learn to strive hard. Since becoming the head of the studio, his focus has been on the Painting of Mortal Life project, which is the most profitable project in the company. He often puts forward some unique ideas and insists on cramming them into the game. The version accident last week was caused by him. After the accident, he shifted the blame onto an interim planner. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but lower my head. Seeing this, Leo gently tapped the table with his fingers and said, Luna, don't be afraid of conflicts at work. Upon hearing this, I raised my head and smiled. President Leo, I'm just an employee. Isn't it inappropriate for me to confront my direct superior head-on? I'm not a college graduate who has just entered society and still has fearless naivety. I also don't have a family to support me, allowing me to resign whenever I want. So, you also need to learn to make use of resources. Leo raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and his voice carried a hint of seduction. For example, me. I sighed and said, as expected of President Leo. Clearly, getting so thoroughly upset. You want me to be the knife that kills. But you say it so nicely. The group suddenly assigned Leo, this big boss, to our game company. It definitely wasn't for him to enjoy easily retirement. These days, the reason why Leo has been lying low is just that he lacks a knife to cut through the situation. And it seems that he has chosen me. Leo clicked his tongue softly and said, Little girl, you're quite smart. So, do you want to play a big game? The weekend passed quickly. For a wage earner, on Monday, coffee keeps being added until one gets tired of it. Meeting in conference room 1601. Everyone. Victor sent a message in the project group. Sonny, who was sitting next to me, couldn't help but curse. This old guy keeps holding meetings. Does he really think we're as idle as he is? I flipped my fingers and quickly sent a message. Then I patted Sonny's shoulder and said, Let's go. The sooner we finish the meeting, the sooner we can leave. In the conference room, Victor stuck out his beer belly and was spitting as he said, There's a really popular movie recently. Nizi. Everyone has seen it, right? For the new character's image in our anniversary version this time, it will be modeled after Nizi. It will definitely be a hit. As soon as he finished speaking, Sonny, heading fulfilled red sigh. The chief artist, slapped the table and stood up. The new character has already been completed. It can't be changed. Who is Sonny? She's known as the Young Lady of Shanghai, with more than a dozen properties in her family. If it weren't for her affection for the game Painting of Mortal Life, when she encountered someone like Victor, she would have already resigned. But Victor didn't think there was anything wrong with himself at all and continued to engage in PUA. What can't be changed? The production cycle of the art team is too long now and needs to be compressed. I've always emphasized that people should have the spirit of striving. Back when I was working at a certain company, I directly interrupted him. Victor, there are only 3 months left until the anniversary celebration. With the character precision of Nizha, we can't make it. Moreover, the concept of the new character has already been released. Changing it now will arouse the player's suspicion. When Victor saw me speak, his shifty eyes landed on my slightly open collar. Lois, it doesn't matter if the model precision is a bit lower. The main thing is that we need to ride on this wave of popularity. And there was a male character of yours before. What was his name? He also had blue hair. We can promote them together then. Don't those young girls like to see this? He squinted his eyes and was about to put his hand on my shoulder as he spoke. The next moment, his wrist was suddenly grabbed. Victor, what kind of meeting is this? Can I join and listen in? Section at article truck, she. President Leo. Why are you here? When Victor saw Leo, he was so scared that he even retracted his beer belly a bit. Leo, who usually wore a suit all the time, was wearing a black hoodie today. He looked a bit younger, but his imposing manner didn't diminish at all. He pulled out the chair beside me and sat down unceremoniously. What? Victor doesn't welcome me? Well, how could that be? We've been longing for you to come and give us some advice so that we can learn from it. Victor wiped the sweat off his forehead and said obsequiously. Leo didn't comment. His slender fingers tapped on the table. Go on. Okay. Victor nodded hastily and then looked at us. There are no problems with the modification of the new character we just talked about. Right? He swept a warning glance at everyone. The others all showed signs of distress on their faces. But no one took the initiative to speak up. Sunny was so angry that she was about to take off her work badge and quit. I held her back. I have a problem. As a female-oriented Otomi game, any behavior that insults women or pairs characters inappropriately should not occur. Otherwise, players will either file complaints at the least or quit the game at the worst. Last time, due to the inappropriate wording and bad jokes in the event storyline, 20 of the players were lost. Are we going to make the same mistake again in the anniversary version? The conference room fell silent in an instant. No one expected that I, who was always the most easy to talk to, would directly confront Victor head-on. And it was right in front of the big boss. Even Victor himself was stunned for a long while. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, Lois, I'm doing this for the project. Whether from the perspective of the overall situation or the market level. At this moment, Leo, who was sitting beside us, suddenly spoke up. Victor, how much revenue is expected for the anniversary version of Paintings of Floating Life? After setting the indicators such as the retention rate, DAU, and ARPU, if these indicators are not met, will you take the responsibility? Victor was immediately at a loss for words. How dare he take on the responsibility for these indicators? He didn't know much about the game itself, and he couldn't even remember the names of the main characters. Very well. The director doesn't dare to speak. And the producer isn't here either. Leo's gaze swept around, and he smiled slightly. Everyone looked at this big boss who had always shown a gentle demeanor. For a moment, they couldn't quite figure out the meaning behind his words. Just then, Leo turned his head and looked at me. In his beautiful peach blossom eyes, there was a half smile. So, heading so live session. Lois, as the assistant producer, what about you? I slightly clenched my fingertips and met his gaze. The expected revenue for the month of the anniversary version is 80 million yuan. I'll take on the responsibility for the indicators. Great. Leo leaned back in his chair and slid it back gracefully for a short distance. He stood up and announced, Then, Lois will be fully responsible for this anniversary version. After it's launched, if the target is met or exceeded, everyone will be given a bonus. Leo returned to his cynical look and winked at everyone. Trust me. The amount of the bonus will definitely exceed everyone's expectations. Let me repeat. This is not an empty promise. Everyone burst into laughter immediately. Especially Sunny. She said heroically, Boss, just ask the finance department to get ready to transfer the money. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh too. Only Victor, who was left aside. Although he tried his best to pull up the corners of his mouth, his eyes were filled with gloom. After returning to my workstation, Sunny leaned in front of me. Luna, be honest. What on earth is going on between you and President Leo? I played dumb. What's going on? Nothing's going on. Sunny looked suspicious. I feel like he seems to be standing up for you. Classmate Sunny. You're really overthinking it. Capitalists never followed a script of getting angry for the sake of a beauty. Luna, I asked someone to find out about this some days ago. Do you know what background our President Leo has? Seeing her mysterious look, I felt like laughing. What background? Something that can make Sunny this excited? I'll give you a hint. The CEO of the group has two sons. One takes the father's surname, and the other takes the mother's surname. Sunny extended one finger, pointed upwards, and continued, and the president's wife happens to have the surname Shi. So, he's not some big boss who parachuted in. He's the crown prince who was demoted. I was shocked in my heart. Damn it. Did I get on the wrong boat? The group has a wide range of businesses. If Leo is the son of the CEO, he definitely won't stay in this game company for too long. When he leaves, won't I be in big trouble? Just as I was wondering whether I should update my resume and make two-handed preparations, Sunny suddenly hugged my arm and said seriously, Luna, I saw the way President Leo looked at you today. He seems to be really interested. Go and win him over. Make that bastard Blake regret it. I quickly covered her mouth. Please. Keep your voice down. Who is he? How could he possibly take a fancy to me? Why not? Luna. You look so alluring. Sunny pinched my face, and her gaze gradually moved down to my chest, and you're so well endowed. Even I'm a woman. I'm very greedy and want to pinch you. Isn't it easy to win over such a young President Leo? I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Classmate Sunny, please uninstall the Tomato Novel app on your phone right now. He's just using me as a tool. What's there to talk about love? He only cares whether this tool is sharp enough. During the lunch break, I called Haley. I briefly told her what happened this morning and the subsequent arrangements for the project. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. After a while, I heard a soft laugh. Luna, you're still the same silly girl as you were back then. My eyes instantly became sour. Haley is 5 years older than me. When I was doing my graduation internship, she was my mentor. Compared to other mentors, she was particularly strict. She talked little and always had a cold expression. The tasks she assigned were more than 3 times as many as those of other mentors. The interns of the same batch all said that I was unlucky to have her as a mentor. But after the internship ended, I was the only one who successfully became a full-time employee. The project Paintings of Floating Life was also developed by Haley and me bit by bit. So, I definitely can't climb up the ladder by stepping on her. Especially when she's going through the toughest time. Luna, don't worry about me. Move up, the higher the better. On the other end of the phone, it was Haley's rarely gentle voice. I held back the choking in my throat and asked a question that I had wanted to ask for a long time. Haley, why did you suddenly choose the path of getting married and having a baby? Haley used to be a firm advocate of remaining unmarried. In her words, men are just tools for massaging the uterus. Her life was always lived for herself, but such a person completed the whole process from getting married to having a baby within a year. And it happened right at the juncture when her career was taking a step forward. Upon hearing this, Haley said infuriately, I think it was probably that night. I had been working overtime for half a month, and when I saw him bring out a bowl of steaming fresh bamboo shoot and spare rib soup with a smile on his face from the kitchen, at that moment, I suddenly felt that it was quite nice to have someone by my side. At least, I wouldn't be so lonely. This answer wasn't really novel, but it still surprised me a bit when it happened to Haley. I see. It's really enviable. I was genuinely happy for her to have found happiness. On the other end of the phone, Haley suddenly chuckled. Luna, do you think that's what I wanted to tell you? There was a hint of bitterness in her smile. No. I want to tell you never to lose to this moment. After the call ended, I was lost in thought for a long time. Since I took over paintings of floating life comprehensively, the progress of the version has significantly accelerated. Motivated by the promising bonus that Leo mentioned, everyone's enthusiasm has also increased significantly. Many people in the game company are cat lovers. After Leo knew about it, he asked the administrative department to set aside an area as a cat paradise. Employees are allowed to bring their cats to work. The company also provides cat treats and cat food cans. As soon as this benefit was announced, the cat owners in the company were overjoyed and shouted, "Long live President Leo! Please let President Leo ascend to the throne." It was both embarrassing and funny. Even someone as thick-skinned as Leo immediately turned around and left when he heard this. "Luna, Eliza. I'm serious. Sleep with him. He must be amazing. Look at his strong waist and those pectoral muscles. MMM. Just as Sunny was staring at Leo's back and sighing continuously, I quickly picked up the small cake on the table and stuffed it into her mouth. Classmate Sunny. It's not good to talk about such things in broad daylight. It's really not good. Sunny finally managed to swallow the cake in her mouth and then said, "Your ex-boyfriend. That scumbag. Is indeed handsome. But I bet you that our President Leo must be 100 times better than him. If you don't believe me, go and give it a try." Upon hearing this, my face instantly turned bright red. Some indescribable images kept popping up in my mind. Stop talking nonsense. The internal test package of the version has just been released, and I need to start testing it. You go and do your work too. After submitting the bug list for the internal test package, it was already 10 o'clock at night. When I got back to my place and was just about to take out the key, I saw a figure leaning against the door. The white shirt was slightly open, and there was a touch of scarlet between his fingers. It was Blake. I hadn't seen him for almost a month, and he had lost a lot of weight. When he saw me, he exhaled a smoke ring and smiled coldly. "Without me, you're living in such a shabby place. You really are something, Luna." I frowned. Recently, due to rushing the version and having a lot of overtime work, I rented a house near the company. The house was built in the 1990s and was indeed a bit old, but it had the advantage of being convenient. Previously, it took more than an hour to commute from Blake's house to the company. Now, I can reach the company in a 10-minute walk. I can even punch in remotely from home. I think it's okay. I looked at the person in front of me calmly and said lightly, "Did you come here for something?" I don't know which word stung Blake. He extinguished the cigarette, approached me, and said sarcastically, "Naturally. You still have something left at my place. And it's an eyesore. Could it be that I came here to beg you to come back with me?" The faint smell of tobacco instantly enveloped me. I involuntarily took a step back to create some distance. When I left Blake's house, I took all my personal belongings with me. The things that I couldn't take away were directly sent to the garbage station in the community. So, I asked him, "What's the thing left at your place?" When Blake saw me take a step back, his face turned even uglier. "How would I know? Do you think I'm going to rummage through the garbage you left behind? You go back and check it yourself." I shook my head. "Blake, cading sigh. Ask the cleaner to clean up and throw it away. I'll pay for the expenses." Seeing my determ and look to draw a clear line with him, Blake was so angry that he laughed. "Luna, you should know when to stop. For the sake of a stray cat. How long are you going to be angry? Or are you actually jealous of Cynthia?" I looked at the man I had loved for more than 6 years. As if there was a mist between us. "Blake, we've already broken up. It's meaningless to talk about these things." When it came to this point, Blake, that guy, who was always proud and self-restrained, sneered. He directly walked downstairs. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped. At a distance. He didn't turn around. It was just that his cold voice, as indifferent as ever, sounded in the corridor. "Luna, do you know why you always feel a sense of crisis when you're facing Cynthia? Because she can be willfully capricious, having been doted on by her parents, and you can never compare to her." That night, I took 2 melatonin pills. But I still had a lot of dreams in a drowsy state. I dreamed of my childhood, My father was choking my mother's neck and hitting it hard against the corner of the table. "You useless woman who can't give birth to a son. I'll beat you to death." The bright red and sticky blood slowly flowed down the table leg. Finally, heading me. It coagulated into a dar, crust-like red line. Even after all these years, I could still smell a fishy smell. I dreamed of my junior high school days. I was taking a shower at home when my father suddenly burst in. His lustrous and reddish eyes slithered over my bare skin like maggots. I was so scared that I screamed. The neighbors heard the sound and came to rescue me. When my mother found out, she slapped me in the face. "You're already able to seduce men at such a young age. You're such a slut." The fragments kept flashing back in my dream. They were like one swamp after another in the middle of the night, with no light of day. Until the dream stopped in my freshman year of college. In this year, I completely severed ties with my biological parents. On New Year's Eve, there was a heavy snowfall. I was alone, huddled in the dormitory to welcome the new year. Just as I was adding the sec and marinated egg to my instant noodles, I received a call from Blake. The young man's cold and clear voice seemed so unreal amidst the silent current sound. I was a bit stunned. When I came to my senses, I immediately rushed downstairs. I didn't even have time to put on my coat. A secret joy exploded in my chest. Under the dim streetlight, Blake's shadow was stretched very long. "Senior Shanghai. Why are you here?" Blake was 2 years ahead of me in school and was a famous aloof person at Peking University. He had an outstanding appearance, a superior family background, and was cold and haughty. And I, being self-conscious and timid, was like the most unremarkable stone by the roadside. We originally had no intersection. But half a month ago, he happened to see the appearance of my biological father pestering me. "Luna, stand back." The young man stepped forward and pulled me away. With a cold face, he loosened his fingers. Then he gave the man a hard blow on the face. The man, who fell to the ground and couldn't get up, wailed, "You brat. I'm dealing with my own daughter. What the hell is it to you? You dare to hit me? I'll definitely sue you until you're bankrupt." Hearing this, Blake's eyes turned cold, and he struck even harder. "It's just about killing a scumbag. I can afford to pay for it." His fierce eyebrows and eyes, coupled with his life-disregarding appearance, finally having fulfilled Wyatt, the man who had cast a shadow over half of my life, fled in a hurry. On that day, New Year's Eve, when families were reunited, the 20-year-old Blake traveled more than 30 kilometers. Standing in front of me with a body full of wind and snow, he handed me the pink panda lunchbox in his hand. "There was too much New Year's Eve dinner at home, so I brought it to you. Also, Helen falsett my session. Happy New Year, Luna." I opened the lunchbox. On the top layer, there were 10 plump glutinous rice balls lying there. The steaming heat blurred my eyes. So on the day of graduation, when Blake, with a faint smell of alcohol, lowered his eyes and asked me, "Luna, do you want to be with me?" After the initial moment of stunnedness, my eyes lit up instantly, and I handed him the bouquet of sunflowers in my arms. "Happy graduation." After a pause, I added in a small voice, "Boyfriend." This was the closest I had ever been to happiness in my life. I thought I had caught the light. Unexpectedly, it was ultimately just a big dream. The next day at work, I bought 2 iced Americanos. After gulping down the cold liquid with a bitter aroma, I woke up completely. Just then, Victor suddenly came over with a person, wearing a big smile on his face. "This is the new character concept artist, a top student from the Academy of Fine Arts. Let's give her a warm welcome." Since the last meeting, Victor hadn't made any moves for a long time. But with his personality, it was unlikely that he wouldn't cause some trouble. Sure enough, here it came. Now he couldn't interfere with the anniversary version of Painting Immortal Life. But as the head of the studio, it wasn't difficult for him to insert someone into the project. I just didn't expect it to be her. "Good morning, everyone, I'm Cynthia. And my English name is Ashley." Cynthia was wearing a green long dress, with a touch of light lip gloss on her lips, and she looked fresh and sweet. "You can just call me Cynthia. Please give me more guidance in the future." After saying that, She even bowed. The people in the project team all clapped to show their welcome. Wow. A sweet girl has joined the project team. I love it. I love it. Great. She's a concept artist girl. We're saved. I'm also from the Academy of Fine Arts. We're alumni. Which year did Ashley graduate? Sunny, however, leaned over and asked me softly, why does the name Cynthia sound so familiar? Isn't she the same name as Blake's Ryan? It's not just the same name. Before I could answer Sunny, Cynthia walked over with a harmless smile on her face. Sister Luna, I heard from Blake before that you also work in this company. I didn't expect that we would be in the same project team. What a coincidence. The eyes of everyone instantly fell on us. There was confusion, curiosity, surprise. Sunny's face changed slightly. Only Victor said with a smile, Lois and Cynthia are old acquaintances. That's even better. When you work together in the future, you should take good care of each other. I also smiled and said, naturally. After all, Ashley is a talent recommended by Victor to join us. Damn it. It really is her. In the Japanese restaurant, Sunny put the cup down heavily. This shameless person. Why is she still trying to disgust people? I unhurriedly picked up a piece of salmon and put it in my mouth. Blake and I have already broken up. If she's still here because of this, it just shows that she's not very smart. The more troublesome thing now is that she actually got into Victor's connections. What are your plans for arranging her in the future? Sunny is the chief artist. And Cynthia is a member of her team. It has nothing to do with me. Sunny spread her hands, indicating that she was giving up. The recruitment didn't go through me at all. I didn't see either her resume or her portfolio. How can I arrange her? I thought about it, and put down the chopsticks in my hand. No. If you do that, you'll be directly slapping Victor in the face. And he'll be able to find trouble with you on a legitimate basis. Moreover, Victor, this incompetent person, is so arrogant not only because he's our superior to me and Sunny. It's also because there are people in the company's senior management who are protecting him. This is also the reason why Leo was suddenly assigned here. Thinking of this, I advised Sunny, arrange tasks for her as usual. Starting from the design of NPC characters. And first see her abilities. In game development, the progress of concept art is ahead of the version. Just like the current version before the anniversary. All the concept art has already been delivered. So Cynthia's output won't have an impact on the anniversary version. After hearing this, Sunny suddenly tilted her head and looked at me seriously, saying, Luna, sometimes, you really are like a heartless work machine. I spread my hands. I have no choice. I want to get the bonus and buy a house earlier. Owning my own house has almost become my obsession. Sunny also knew this. So she winked at me and said, I calculate with my fingers that our Luna will definitely be able to buy a house this year. When it comes to the decoration, I'll design it for you for free. Sunny is really brilliant at foreseeing things. Sunny is really prescient. Then I'll thank Sunny in advance. I also calculate with my fingers that our Luna will definitely be able to sleep with President Leo this year. Shut up. Just as I directly reached out to cover Sunny's mouth, there was a soft laugh from the next door. Then, let out a low sigh. The wooden sliding door in the middle was slowly opened. I saw the people sitting there. One was Leo. The other was a handsome man who looked 7 parts similar to him. But he was a bit older. The handsome man held back his laughter and looked back and forth between me and Leo with his eyes. Then he took out his phone and started sending messages. And Leo's gaze was directly fixed on me. And he slightly curved his lips. Student Luna. If you need anything, you're always welcome. Me. I silently repeated 3 times in my heart, as long as I'm not embarrassed. It's others who will be embarrassed. Then I decisively reached out and closed the sliding door again. Sunny was dumbfounded and asked me in a low voice. What did President Leo mean by that just now? Me, it means nothing. Really nothing. The sashimi in this Japanese restaurant is really sashimi. Sunny. The whole meal was full of surprises. After the meal, I went to pay the bill. Only then did the clerk tell me that someone had already paid for us. Another week passed. Wow! Cynthia. Your boyfriend is so good to you. Not only is he handsome, but he's also so thoughtful. He comes to pick you up from work every day. In the elevator after work, a colleague exclaimed. Cynthia's face turned slightly red. And she said shyly, Oh. He's been like this since he was a child. He's so afraid that I'll be abducted by someone. Well, your childhood sweethearts. How enviable. Cynthia smiled and pursed her lips upon hearing this. But her gaze fell on me in the corner, showing a bit of pride and provocation. Sister Luna. Where do you live? Do you want me and Blake to give you a ride? I smiled slightly and said, no need. If you give me a ride, I'll actually get home later. Seeing me so calm, Cynthia's smile froze for a moment. After getting out of the elevator, I saw Blake leaning against the black Mavic at the company entrance. He had a carefree posture and a cold expression. His eyes lingered on me for a moment. At this time, Cynthia, who was a few steps behind, suddenly bumped into my shoulder and ran forward. Blake Arrow. You're here. Blake just gave a feint, but didn't move. Cynthia followed his gaze and her face changed slightly. She hugged Blake's arm and coquettously said, Blake, I'm so hungry. Let's go have dinner first. Blake suddenly raised his hand and tucked a strand of her falling hair behind her ear. What do you want to eat? I pretended not to see this loving scene and continued walking in the direction of my home. But I heard Blake ask, Luna, do you want to come along? I was with Blake for 5 years. For this kind of 3-person meal, I went from being at a loss at the beginning to gradually getting bored later. Now that we've broken up, do I really have to have a farewell meal? I was about to say directly that I didn't need it, but I saw our elusive big boss, who somehow emerged from nowhere. Leo was wearing a black outdoor tactical jacket today, which made him look even more broad-shouldered and long-legged. A few strands of broken hair fell on his forehead, adding a bit of uninhibitedness. Luna, I'm flying to Beijing tonight. Me? What does this have to do with me? Could it be that you want me to fly the plane for you? Seeing this, Cynthia beside us looked a bit astonished and uncertain. President Leo? Leo cast a faint glance at her. Is there something wrong? No, nothing. So Leo stopped looking at her and turned back to me, continuing to say, before I leave, I want to drop by and see Lucky on the way. Just as I was wondering which way this was supposed to be on the way. Not far away. Leo's driver had silently driven the car away. Me. All right. When I was about to take the big boss home to see the cat, Blake, who had been silent for a long time, slightly tugged at the corners of his lips and suddenly said, Luna is really sentimental. It's only been a month since the breakup. Have you already found someone new? Blake has always had a venomous tongue. Even though I knew this, I couldn't help feeling a bit annoyed. What are you talking nonsense about? President Leo is my boss. Leo beside me pinched the center of his brows and said with a bit of helplessness, Luna, has anyone ever told you that you're really bad at arguing? Then, let out a low sigh. He looked at Blake with a mocking gaze. Blake, you let out a low sigh. You're just an ex-boyfriend. Why do you care so much? Are you bored? There's a traffic light intersection ahead. How about you stand there and help the old granny cross the road? On the way back, I felt like laughing a bit. I always thought that Leo was a big bad wolf wearing a sheep's skin. Today I realized that there's also a layer of fox fur in between. You're still secretly laughing? It's not that I'm criticizing you, Luna, but your taste in choosing boyfriends is really just so-so. Leo turned his eyes to look at me, with a bit of the feeling of being disappointed in someone for failing to live up to expectations. I didn't say anything. I really didn't know what to say. At this moment, we had already reached downstairs of my residence. But Leo stopped in his tracks and commanded me confidently, go and bring Lucky down quickly. You haven't taken it to the company these days. And it must be missing me. Hearing this, I couldn't help rolling my eyes. Since the company had the cat paradise, I would take Lucky there every now and then. It was convenient for me to take a big whiff of it to regain my energy when the work pressure was high. But I found that sometimes I couldn't find it. Until one day, when I went to Leo's office to report the project progress, I found that the already very chubby Lucky was lying on its back in his arms, sound asleep. There was also a newly opened can of cat food, which was known as the Hermes in the cat world. At that moment, I had the feeling of catching someone in the act. And now, even though I couldn't help feeling a bit sad, I still brought Lucky down. That spineless little guy. As soon as Lucky saw Leo, happily licked his face. Then it purred. Leo stroked its head and said, "Good Lucky. I didn't feed you in vain." Seeing the way the man and the cat were reluctantly saying goodbye, I seemed a bit redundant. About 10 minutes later, Leo returned Lucky to me and then said, "Luna, I'll stay in Beijing for a week. There's still some business in the group that hasn't been taken care of. And the old man is urging me urgently. If there's anything going on in the company, give me a call." Finally, Hanali. He looked into my eyes and added, "Any time is fine." 2 days later. Before getting off work. Which son of a bitch did this? If I catch him, I'll smash his head to pieces. At her workstation, Sunny was so angry that she directly threw the mouse in her hand. My face didn't look good either. A new character of the anniversary version had been leaked in advance. 4 card faces had been revealed. The players were immediately in an uproar and it directly topped the trending searches. And due to the issues of clarity and the character version, the players had doubts about the new character. I thought it was going to be something great. But it turned out to be a big disappointment. This character is so similar to. Is it plagiarism? Didn't anyone say it? This new character gives off a strong vibe of a real-life man. There must be some bad guys mixed into the planning team again. The public opinion on the internet kept fermenting and getting more and more intense. Victor strolled over leisurely, looking like he was enjoying the show. "Lois, have you found out who leaked the internal information? In such a serious accident, if you can't find the culprit, you'll have to take the blame." I didn't even raise my head, and my fingers were flying over the keyboard. "Victor, stop saying sarcastic remarks. Be careful of getting a toothache." Victor suddenly became furious. "You." At this moment, Cynthia passed by carrying a cup of coffee. "Victor, don't be angry. Sister Luna is under the protection of President Leo, so of course she's not worried." Hearing this, Victor sneered. "Luna, do you really think President Leo will protect you for a lifetime? He's the crown prince. He's just here for fun and won't stay for long. What will you do then?" What to do? Of course, find a new company and start over. However, this wasn't the time to think about that. After finalizing the emergency plan at hand, I dialed Leo's phone number, who was far away in Beijing. He picked up the phone quickly. "President Leo, the emergency plan for the leakage of the new character has just been sent to you. You can take a look. Regarding the players' doubts about the new character, we plan to release the character PV in advance so that the players can have a clearer understanding of the character. Regarding the leakage of the main storyline, we will make some deletions and revisions to it and add supplementary plots to try our best to ensure the players' freshness towards the character." The person on the other end of the phone listened in silence and didn't interrupt me. Only after I finished speaking did he and say, "Okay. Do as you said. Is there anything I can assist you with?" "Yes." I didn't pause and directly said, "This accident was caused by an internal problem. I've already contacted the IT department, but they haven't found out the cause. So, President Leo, I need you to send more technical personnel to check it simultaneously." "Okay." Leo agreed briefly. There was no comfort, nor any blame. After the character PV was released, the public opinion ran on the internet's suddenly reversed. "Damn it. The greasy guy has been transformed into my dear husband. Sorry. I said you were showing off before. Now it seems that I was the one showing off. I'm officially notifying you that you can put your hand into my wallet to warm it up." On the other hand, the whole project team worked overtime. I paid for the late night snacks. Everyone has worked hard. Have something to eat first. Because it was an unexpected situation and I asked everyone to work overtime. I specifically ordered takeout from Rongxing Pavilion. Wow. It's so sumptuous. Thank you. Lois. Lois. Love you. Love you. No wonder she's my goddess. She's not only beautiful but also generous. When I returned to my workstation, a WeChat message popped up. "Send me the bill." Sender, Leo. Me, it's okay. President Leo. I'll pay for it. There was silence on the other side. The next moment, 1 million yuan was credited to my Alipay account. The late-night snack expenses for the overtime work before the version is launched. Refund the excess and make up for the shortage. On May 16, the anniversary version was officially launched. Due to the rich content of the version, and the unexpected blessing in disguise that the pearlies of the new character brought cross-circle popularity, the monthly revenue directly soared to 140 million yuan. The project celebration banquet was held on a cruise ship on the Huaqiwei River. Victor didn't come. And Cynthia took a sick leave. Except for them. Everyone who had just received a generous bonus attended the celebration banquet in full dress. There were Hanfu, Lolita dresses, little evening gowns, JK uniforms, cosplay costumes. It could almost be made into a clothing catalog. Wow. Baby, Dadada Losai. You look stunning today. Sunny looked me up and down and couldn't help exclaiming, just now. Several people looked at you and their faces turned red. Today I was wearing a black sleeveless long dress with golden patterns. On my fair shoulders and neck, there were layers of velvet shoulder chains. When I walked, the skirts swayed slightly. Hearing Sunny's words, I couldn't help waving my hand and whispering, Sunny, don't be so exaggerated. Since I became friends with you, I really tend to be overly proud easily. Just then, a male college student who had just graduated came over. He blushed and said, Lois, I want to invite you to have a glass of wine. Is that okay? The people around were cheering. I smiled, raised my glass and clinked it, of course. Then I drank it all in one gulp. Lois has a good capacity for alcohol. After this start, everyone began to come over to offer toasts one after another. After drinking several rounds of wine, everyone else was already so drunk that they were staggering. So I found an excuse to leave. On the deck, the river wind blew. I stood there, quietly looking at the gorgeous neon lights in the distance. What are you thinking about? I didn't know when someone had stood beside me. I turned my head and saw that Leo was looking at me with a deep and mysterious gaze. Perhaps because of drinking, he had a bit more uninhibited and casual air than usual. I smiled. I'm thinking that I can finally take root in this city. The project bonus this time was indeed as generous as Leo had said and was worth looking forward to. The day after the money was credited to my account, I bought a house in full payment. It was a house that I had been looking at for a long time. It wasn't very big, just over 60 square meters. But I liked it very much. Luna, congratulations. You've achieved what you wished for. In the night, Leo's voice sounded. After thinking for a while, I suddenly asked him, President Leo, was the 100 bows and yuan deducted from the bonus this time? The sound of the river flowing was gently surging. Not far away. There were also the sounds of people making a ruckus and laughing. Do you hope that it has been deducted, or that it hasn't been deducted? The corners of Leo's lips curled up, and his gaze directly met mine without wavering. I said softly, I hope it hasn't been deducted. As soon as I finished speaking, his warm palm covered my waist and pulled me into his arms. The scent of firwood came along. Since that's the case, don't you think you should pay back the debt you owe me last time? In the rental house, the light was warm and soft. The shoulder chain broke. The broken beads scattered all over the floor, like the continuously beating drumbeats. The light above my head was swaying. It was like the undulating waves on the sea surface. After being crushed, they came together again. Then they were crushed again. I don't know how much time had passed. It was not until the sky outside the window bright and that I fell into a deep sleep. The day after the celebration banquet, the company's senior management was reshuffled. The vice president left his position, and the person in charge of Qiming Studio was also fired. Of course, these were relatively decent departures. As for the ones that were not decent, they were Victor and Cynthia. Both of them were sued by the company for the crime of infringing on business secrets. Leo directly sent down the most powerful legal team from the group headquarters. He changed his gentle style in the past and took a thunderous stance. In the office, I was reporting the work plan for the next quarter to Leo. But Cynthia suddenly burst in. President Leo, I can't go to jail. Please. As long as you let me go. I'm willing to do anything. She was wearing a white dress. With red eyes. Looking like a white gardenia flower. Delicate and pitiful. But Leo didn't even look at her and just threw out 2 words, "Get out." At this moment, Blake came. His gaze fell on Leo and me. It was complex and obscure. He pulled up Cynthia, who was about to kneel down, and said coldly, "Get up. What's the use of begging him? It's better to go back and find a better lawyer." Cynthia stood up, trembling. After knowing her for many years, this was the first time I saw her look terrified. Perhaps she sensed my gaze. Cynthia suddenly laughed. And her face began to look a bit crazy. "Luna. You must be very proud. Right? The person like you who grew up in the mud stole my Blake. And now you've even latched onto President Leo?" I ignored her. Blake's face, heading Puffdo's face, however, looked a bit unpleasant. He quickly glanced at me. Then he grabbed Cynthia and tried to pull her away. "Cynthia. Stop acting crazy here." Cynthia let him pull her until they reached the door of the office. She suddenly turned her head and gave me a mocking smile. But the words she said were directed at Leo. "President Leo. I kindly advise you not to be too infatuated with Luna. A person like her can even seduce her own biological father." In an instant, I felt as if all the blood in my body had frozen. I looked at Blake in disbelief. I had never told anyone about the things at home. Only Blake knew. But he had exposed my scars to others. On the other side, Blake let go of Cynthia's hand and walked towards me. There was a humility in his eyes that I had never seen before. And he said in a trembling voice, trying to explain, "Luna." The next moment, I picked up the cup on the table and smashed it on his head. The porcelain shattered. Bright red blood dripped onto Blake's face. Cynthia, not far away, let out a scream and pounced beside Blake. Before fainting, Blake looked at me intently, his face pale, and said slowly, word by word, "Don't cry, Luna. I'm sorry." This farce ended with the ambulance taking Blake away. The sound insulation in Leo's office is very good, but it couldn't withstand this commotion, which was indeed quite big. It made the people in the company talk, and guess what had happened? In the office, I forced myself to calm down and pulled the corners of my mouth. "President Leo, do you have any questions about the plan for the next quarter?" Although my relationship with Leo in bed was very harmonious, but out of bed, we both tacitly agreed to handle things in a business-like manner. At this moment, his gaze was a bit heavy. Knock, knock, knock. Edding till wide session. Knock. The secretary's knock on the door relieved the awkwardness of this moment. I was about to get up. "Sit still." Leo took the first aid kit from the secretary and then sat beside me. Sighing, "Stretch out your hand." Only then did I realize that my finger had been cut by the broken porcelain. While applying medicine to me, Leo began to chatter, "Student Luna. When you hit someone, you should pick something handy. You just smashed a porcelain cup. That's really something. Does it hurt?" I don't know why. My eyes were a bit wet. And I said softly, "It doesn't hurt." After a moment, I asked again, "Leo, do you believe me?" Cynthia's words were like a bomb that exploded the deep swamp. However, after I blurted out this question without thinking, I felt a bit regretful in my heart. Why bother? I had clearly walked out of that swamp. So why keep looking back? Leo lowered his head and kissed between my eyebrows. "Luna. Do you know? Some people accuse you not because they really think you've done something bad, but because they know that by saying so, they can make you suffer." A month later, Haley returned to work. She still served as the producer of the Painting of Mortal Life project, and I took the place of Victor. That night, Haley, Sunny, and I got together again after a long time. Congratulations to Haley for returning to the workplace. Congratulations to Luna for buying a house and finally having her own home. When slightly drunk, Sunny said loudly with red cheeks. Haley and I looked at each other and smiled. I took the wine glass from Sunny's hand and said seriously, "Also, congratulations to our Sunny for always moving forward without hesitation." The three of us, both Haley and I, had been held back by something at a certain moment. What we thought could resist loneliness actually made us fall into deeper loneliness. What we thought was salvation turned out to be an empty dream. Only Sunny had always walked on her own path sincerely and frankly, moving according to her own heart and not stopping for anyone. When I got home, Lucky was already asleep. Leo was sitting on the sofa, turning on the computer and dealing with work. I was a bit surprised. "Why are you here?" Leo seemed a bit unhappy when he heard this. "Lucky missed me." "What? Is there someone else in your room that I can't come?" Before maintaining this so-called relationship as bed partners with Leo, we had made 3 agreements. It must be carried out on the premise of ensuring that we are single. If one party has a partner or a more desirable bed partner, they need to immediately inform the other person. Now, I didn't know what had gotten into Leo, so I casually coaxed him, "You can come." "Of course. If you can't come, who can?" Leo snorted softly, euphemistically indicating that he was satisfied with this answer. Just then, the screen of my phone lit up, and I took a look. I couldn't help frowning. It was Blake. I hung up directly. The other side was also very sensible and didn't call again. After taking a shower, I hung my clothes on the balcony. I thought that it was pouring rain outside the window, and the dim streetlight seemed to be tottering. A Maybach was parked quietly downstairs. I couldn't see the license plate clearly. I didn't pay much attention either. When I returned to the room, Leo, who had finished dealing with work, hugged me from behind. It was another night of tossing. When I woke up the next day, the first thought that came to my mind was actually that the bottle of melatonin on the bedside had actually gathered dust. "Luna, I regret it. Come home with me. Okay?" As soon as I went downstairs, I bumped into Blake. He had always been a clean freak, but now his shirt was a bit wrinkled. It seemed that he hadn't slept all night, and there were bloodshot eyes under his eyes. The once proud young man had now learned to bow his head. For a moment, my heart was filled with mixed feelings. I had truly liked Blake. I wasn't stupid. The reason why my parents had never dared to show up in front of me since my freshman year of college. It was all because Blake had helped me behind the scenes. So even though Blake had a sharp tongue, even though there was still Cynthia between us, I still liked him without hesitation for 6 years. Until now, I could calmly admit that I had hated Blake and resented Blake. But I alone didn't dare to say that I regretted liking him. Seeing me silent, Blake's eyes suddenly lit up, as if he saw a glimmer of hope. "Luna, I didn't throw away Lucky because of Cynthia. It was because I didn't want it to take away your attention from me. I know I'm not a very good boyfriend. I have a bad temper. I don't speak nicely. And I always make you sad. But I really like you. Can you give me another chance? Come home with me. Okay?" Blake's eyes were red. His voice was hoarse. And he cautiously tried to step forward. But he was stopped by someone. "Sorry. She can't go home with you." I don't know how long Leo had been standing behind and listening. Only now did he chuckle and step forward to put his arm around my waist, saying, "Because she has to take responsibility for me." He slightly tilted his head, as if accidentally, revealing the mark on the side of his neck. The light in Blake's eyes instantly went out. His face was completely still, and he stared at me quietly, saying softly, "Luna, I want to hear it from your own mouth." I had climbed out of the swamp and then fell into a thick fog. Now that the fog had cleared, I had to continue on my journey. So, I looked at the person in front of me calmly and said, "Blake, Unisari, this is it for us." It was New Year's Eve again. Unlike previous years, this year I was celebrating the new year in my new home. Yes. At the age of 26, I finally had my own house. I bought a lot of things to add to the New Year's atmosphere. I was excited and decorated for a whole day. But Lucky seemed a bit listless. I knew it was missing Leo. A month ago, Leo suddenly asked me, "Luna, when do you have time? My parents want to meet you." At that time, I had just experienced some intimacy and was almost falling asleep. When I heard this, I was completely awakened. I asked him in shock, "With our relationship, you actually told your parents?" Leo paused. "What's our relationship?" Without thinking, I said, "Anyway, It's not the kind of relationship where we can meet each other's parents. I thought that by saying this, Leo should understand what I meant. But he continued to ask, Luna, what if I say that I want to develop a relationship with you that allows us to meet each other's parents and friends? I raised my eyes and looked at this extremely handsome face in front of me. I felt a bit regretful in my heart. But I still smiled and said, and you're breaking the rules. And I'm going to end this relationship. That night, Leo didn't stay overnight for the first time. Later in the company, we had no other communication except for work. But fortunately, the year-end bonus wasn't reduced. Thinking of this, my originally somewhat downcast mood instantly perked up again. After hanging up the last Fu character lantern, I picked up Lucky, kissed it twice, and said, Lucky, this is our new year. Just then, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. I saw Leo holding things in both hands. Yet with a cold face. Luna, I'm here to collect it at